Mark chapter 4, verse 35 and verse 36. Let's read these verses together. And the same day when the even was come, he saith unto them, let us pass over unto the other side. And when he had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship. And there were also with him other little ships. So in verse 35, Jesus extends an invitation to his disciples. But before he takes a trip with his disciples, that is his truest followers, his student followers, before Jesus could go to the next level with his followers, you find the statement that is contained in verse 36, and it is this, and when he sent away the multitude. I want to help you make an announcement to all the grown people you have been carrying in 2017, 2018, and 2019. I want to help you make a declaration to them tonight. Are you ready for me to help you make a declaration to all the grown people you have been carrying since 2017, 2018, 2019? Are you ready to make a declaration to them? You ought to look at them wherever they are. Not next, hopefully they're not in the room with you. Some of y'all say, Pastor, I ain't got to look far. I brought them with me tonight. But I want you to make a declaration to all the grown people you've been carrying for far too long. Repeat after me. I'm sorry, but you can't go. Amen. You may be seated in the Lord's presence. That's what I want to talk about tonight on New Year's Eve night as we leave 2019 on our way into 2018. There are some grown people in your life that you need to inform that you are sorry, but they can't go. You carried them in 17. You carried them in 18. You carried them in 19. Some of them are in the club tonight, toe up from the floor up. They got on a brand new outfit. Their lashes are so heavy until they had to do calisthenics just to keep their eyes open. Somebody's wearing a Mr. T starter kit. They all greased down up here in the chest, but you still carrying them on your phone bill. And your testimony to them tonight ought to be, I'm sorry, but you can't go. One of the hardest words for some of us to use is a word that only has 2 letters and only has 1 syllable, and it is the word no. Some of us really struggle. Anybody willing to be honest that you struggle with telling people no? One of my preaching heroes is Dr. John Allen Newman, and his secretary called him and said to him, Dr. Newman, a pastor has placed a call to you, and you need to return that pastor's call immediately because it is an emergency. To which Dr. Newman responded, an emergency to whom? Is it an emergency to him, or is it an emergency to me? Sometimes you've got to learn how to tell people no. Crystal, can we just practice as one big group in here together? I'm going to ask you a question, and regardless of what I ask you, I want your answer to be no. Can y'all handle that? All right, can I borrow $5? No. Good God, y'all more excited than I thought. Can you take me to the mall? No. Can I stay at your house when I got some? In Mark's Gospel, chapter 4, Jesus teaches us how to take this two-letter word that only carries one syllable. And he shows us the benefit not only of using the word, but even the benefit of hearing the word. I want to drop one major theme in your spiritual basket as you leave 2019 on your way into 2020. Here is the one spiritual nugget that I want to drop into your basket. Are you ready for it? There is a difference between those you can tolerate and those you can elevate. There is a difference between those you can tolerate and those you can elevate. Some of you, this is going to come as a news flash to you because you've been on your job for the last 15, 20 years and you really think you all of that. Here's the reality. They just tolerate you. When it comes time for a promotion, they're looking to everybody else to promote and not even looking in your direction. Why? Because everybody you can tolerate, you cannot elevate. And there are some people around you that you have been putting up with, but they will not be able to handle this next level version of you. And tolerating them is one thing, but elevating them is something else. Hey, it's one thing for them to be your boo thing, but that don't mean you necessarily need to put a ring on it. Hey, now you don't need to act like it's already a ring on it. Y'all did come to have church tonight, didn't you? But some people who have boo thing status do not qualify for fiancé status. Because you got a lot of romance, you just ain't got much finance. And you got to learn you got to know how to learn the difference between seasonal people and lifetime people. There is a difference between those you can tolerate and those you can elevate. Brother Harry, when you read verse 1 and verse 2 of Mark chapter 4, you discover that a crowd has gathered together that is so large just to hear Jesus teach, until Jesus had to move beyond the shore that he was standing on and get inside of a boat just so that the people didn't push him into the water. There was a whole crowd of them. And in between verse 1 all the way to verse 34, he is laboring with them. He is sharing stories with them. But when it came time for verse 35, Jesus had to inform them that y'all been hanging out with me all day, but where I'm getting ready to go, y'all can't handle. Jesus had to turn to them and tell them no. He told them that where I'm going, you cannot go. They had to stay where they were. And all I want to do with the time that's left on the clock, with these Baptist 15 minutes that y'all left me with, you know, ain't no telling how long that is, a Baptist 15 minutes. But I want to take 3 words of affirmation and share them with you on the benefits of being able to use this 2-letter word that only has one syllable, the word no, because it is a benefit to those of us who learn how to use it and to those of us who know how to receive it or how to hear it. Here's the first element contained in the text about the value of this word no. If you learn how to use the word no, this will help you. It's right there in verse 35 and in verse 36. If you learn how to tell people no, this will help you. All right, let me say it the way that you are a little more familiar with it. This will help you. Because the reason you hide in your car at somebody else's house is not because of your brokenness. It's because you've been co-signing on somebody else's brokenness. And you didn't know how to tell them no. The reason you got a cell phone and a house phone, but you're scared to answer either one of them, is because there's somebody in your life and you didn't know how to tell them no. The reason you're on the verge of getting your lights cut off while your child is wearing a pair of $200 tennis shoes is because you struggle with knowing how to tell people no. The reason you got a wife and a girlfriend. I can't stand deep saints. It's because you struggle with telling somebody no. Some of y'all can't wait to get out of church tonight because you already promised somebody where you're going to be at 12:30. I guess I've been doing this too long. This will help you. If you learn how to tell people no, this will help you. It's in verse 35 and verse 36. And the same day, when the even was come, he saith unto them, let us pass over unto the other side. And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship. Let me explain to you how it will help you when you learn how to tell people no. Do you see how urgent this matter is in verse 35 and in verse 36? This all occurs not in the morning time, but in the evening time. That means that Jesus has been laboring all day long. It is now time for people to go home. And the time is so urgent until verse 35 says that it was the same day, not the next day, but the same day. Not in the morning time, but when the evening had come. He saith unto them, that is his disciples, let us now pass over unto the other side. And when they sent away the multitude, watch this, they took him even as he was in the ship. That means they didn't pack a new lunch. They didn't go home for Jesus to put on a new change of clothes. He didn't get some new sandals. He didn't get a new robe. This situation was so urgent until they needed to go right then. What does that mean? Sometimes you don't have time to explain everything. And the reason some of the people you rolling with, you don't need to be rolling with them, is because sometimes you need to move and you ain't got time to explain everything. But some of the folks you rolling with, before they make a step, they got to have all the details. But when the reality is, sometimes when God tells you to move, he didn't say nothing about you, Pookie, and Ray Ray. He didn't say nothing about you, Shay Shay, them. And you ain't got time to be trying to explain to everybody and get them all on the same page. This will help you. Because in verse 33 through verse 34, Jesus had been laboring with them. Watch 33. And with many such parables spake he the word to them as they were able to hear it. But without a parable spake he not unto them. And when they were alone, he explained all things to his disciples. Sometimes you don't have time to explain everything. Parents, that's why you need to teach your kids to do what you tell them to do when you tell them to do it, because sometimes you ain't got all day to explain everything. When you tell them to move, it's time for them to move. Some of the people you hanging with, if you tell them to duck, they want to know why they ducking. When truth is, if you don't duck, you might lose your head. This will help you. Hey, that's not all. It is not only true that the benefit you get out of being able to tell people no is the fact that this will help you. There's a second element in the text. It is this. This will help them. I've shared with you over the years about one of the first attempts at transatlantic flight. A man was trying to fly a solo piloted aircraft all the way across the Atlantic Ocean without ever having to stop. He was flying the plane at an altitude of 33,000 feet, and he started hearing a strange sound. It was a gnawing sound. It was a chewing sound. And when he looked down, he saw that the insulation that protected the delicate wires that held the plane in the air, the insulation was falling all over his feet. Darrell, do you know what he immediately deduced? He wasn't the only person on the plane. There was a stowaway passenger on the plane. A rat was in the cockpit chewing on the wires that helped to keep the plane in the air. What do you do flying at 33,000 feet and you got a rat chewing on your wires? You know what he did? He took the plane higher and higher and higher, and finally the rat fell out. You know why? He took the rat into an atmosphere where the air was so thin until the rat couldn't survive. And you are choking some of your friends to death because you're trying to take them with you into an atmosphere that they can't survive in. You think you helping them, but you really hurting them. Some people, you do them well by being able to tell them no. Hey, in 35 and 36, they wanted to go with Jesus, and Jesus said, y'all can't go with me, go home. What I find to be interesting, Sister Miller, is that Jesus did take with him 12 disciples. And when you read verse 36 through verse 41, they tripped on Jesus. Hey, it's in the text. Watch verse 36. And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship. There were also with him other little ships. Watch verse 37. And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And they awake him and say unto him, Master, carest thou not that we perish? And he arose and rebuked the wind and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said unto them, Why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith? And they feared exceedingly, and said one to another, What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Says Joanne, here's the point I'm trying to make. if these boys, these 12 boys who had been with Jesus a long time, if they fell apart on the journey, imagine how quickly the crowd would have fallen apart. You see, these boys had been with Jesus long enough to see him do some stuff. They saw in Matthew chapter 3 when all three aspects of the Trinity showed up at the same time. Jesus was standing in the water to be baptized. The Spirit of God came down in the form of a dove, and God the Father spoke from heaven and said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." These boys had witnessed all three aspects of the Trinity at the same time, and they still fell apart when they got in a storm. These same boys were with Jesus in the early chapters of the Gospel of John when Jesus took water and turned it into wine. Some of y'all wondering if he can do it tonight. They had witnessed Jesus turn a crisis into a miracle in John chapter 2. In Mark chapter 1, they watched him heal a man with leprosy. In Mark chapter 2, they watched him heal a man who had been paralyzed. In Mark chapter 3, he healed a man with a withered hand. What am I getting at? They had already seen Jesus work, and they fell apart. Imagine what would have happened with a crowd of people who would only listen to Jesus teach. And the reason you need to leave some people where you have found them is because the atmosphere that God is taking you to, the air is so thin up there, they won't be able to survive. Because truth be told, you barely made it through 2019. I can't stand saints who act like they've been saints all their lives. It is by the grace of God that you haven't pulled your own hair out in 2019. And you got the nerve to talk about the people you trying to drag into 2020, and you barely made it yourself. So this text proves that when you learn how to tell people no, it will help you, it is also true that this will help them. And some of the people in your life, you have got to learn how to cut them off for their own benefit. You can't handle it up here where I'm trying to go. See, you stuck on Kevin 0.05. And I'm already at Kevin 2.0. And if you couldn't handle the 0.05 version, this 2.0 version is going to drive you crazy. What does that teach, Thorpe? I'm so glad you asked. You all ask such wonderful questions the closer we get to the new year. I've already told you that sometimes you don't have time to explain everything to everybody. Here's another nugget I want to drop with you. Sometimes you don't know how to explain everything to everybody. Some of the stuff you're going to go through, not only do you not have the time to explain it, you don't know how to explain it yourself. Here Jesus is on the boat with these disciples, sleeping while a storm is raging. That's hard to explain. The boat is full of water, and Jesus is asleep. That's hard to explain. The storm appears to be raging, and Jesus is resting in the middle of the storm. That's hard to explain. See, when you're praying over a loved one, you got to be careful about who you bring in the room with you, because they're not going to understand everything about your prayer. See, because sometimes when you're in the room with people who are sick, your prayer is not one of deliverance, it's a prayer of comfort. I wish I had somebody who knew what I was talking about. Some of our prayers are not, Lord, deliver me from this. Sometimes we got to learn how to pray, Lord, if you got to take me through this, at least you're going to be with me while I'm going through. And people won't understand. There's some people in your life right now. They have gone through circumstances similar to yours. They got over theirs quickly. You're still struggling with yours. And you busy trying to get them to understand. How you going to get them to understand what you don't understand? Wish I had somebody who knew what I was talking about. How are you going to get them to see what's going on when you don't even understand what's going on? How is it that when people are requesting sympathy from Jesus in Mark chapter 4, he denies them sympathy? You know, Tam, one of my most favorite passages in the whole Bible is Genesis chapter 22. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I love Genesis chapter 22. In Genesis 22, God says to a man named Abraham, take your only son, whose name is Isaac, take him up to a mountain, and I want you to kill him and offer him as a sacrifice unto me. Bible says Abraham gets up the following morning. He takes some servants with him. He takes a donkey. He takes some wood. He takes a knife. He takes his son Isaac, and up to the mountain they go. When they got to the base of the mountain, Abraham said to the servants, stay here with the donkeys. And he said, me and the boy are going up on the mountain to worship, and me and the boy will return. I wish I had some Bible readers. Now, God had said to Abraham, take the boy up there and kill him. Abraham said to the servants, stay here with the donkeys. I'm going up with the boy. We are going to worship, and then we are going to return. If you fast forward all the way to the book of Hebrews chapter 11, what Abraham knew was if God killed the boy on the mountain, he had to resurrect him before he got back down. But here's the problem. If Abraham had taken the servants with him, when they got to the top of the mountain, and Isaac said, Daddy, this is not my first time being with you during a sacrifice. I see a knife, I see some wood, I see fire, but where's the lamb? Abraham said, don't worry about it. The Lord will provide himself a lamb. Hey, you know what that literally means in Hebrew? The Lord said, I'll see to it. I'll see to it. Hey, the servants, when they saw Abraham, if they had gone to the mountaintop with him, when they saw him tie up Isaac and lay him down on the wood, as quickly as he would have tied him up, the servants would have untied him. When Abraham drew back the knife to take the life of his son, the servants would have snatched the knife out of his hand and declared that Abraham, the Mediterranean sun, is driving you crazy. Which means if he would have taken the servants with him, they would have talked him out of what God has talked him into. And that's why your life's so jacked up right now. You keep taking donkey people to your mountaintop experience, and they've been talking you out of what God has been talking you into. Sometimes you don't have the time to explain everything, and at other times you don't even understand it yourself. This text proves that this will help you when you learn how to tell people no. It also proves that this will help them when you learn how to tell people no. But here's the last thing, and I'm out. This may persuade some of them when you learn how to tell them no. Can I give this to you for free? The miracle of Mark is not in chapter 4. We get so sidetracked by what occurs in chapter 4. Pastor, look at it. Look at it. By the time you get to verse 41, Jesus spoke to the wind and spoke to the waves and said, "Peace, be still." And the winds and the waves laid down like a sleepy dog. You think that's something? Jesus, the boat was full of water. Your sandals were floating. Your robe was wet. Jesus said, you think that was something? Hey, Jesus said, did any of you pause long enough to ask why I was sleeping in the first place? The miracle is not in Mark 4. The miracle does not occur until Mark 5. In Mark chapter 5, there were two men living in the cemetery possessed with demons. And Jesus said, the reason I got to take a nap in chapter 4 is because of the warfare I've got to do in chapter 5. And the message to you is, if you fall apart in my chapter 4, you're going to lose your mind when you get to my chapter 5. But watch this. It's in the text. Sister Barnes, it's in the text. It's in verse 36. It's in the text that even when you cut people off, sometimes you do them a favor. Because verse 36 says, and when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship. Don't miss this. And there were also with him other little ships. What are you getting at? Some of the people in your life, if you hadn't have kicked them out of your big ship, they never would have found their little ship. Okay, y'all gonna be deep. You think you helping people because you do everything for them, when the truth is you are crippling people who will never be able to do anything for themselves. He 35, you wash all his clothes. What he gonna do when he get married? She 40, you cutting up her meat. What is she gonna do when she's got children of her own? Do you know there's some mothers in here who will testify that the only reason your child stopped nursing is because you got tired of them nursing. They never got tired of nursing themselves. If you had left it up to them, they'd have been 12 years old looking for you at lunchtime. But because you got tired of them, you start switching some things up and stop nursing and learn what formula was. Learn what cereal was. And somebody in this room is nursing somebody who's old enough to be dining in their own restaurant. And you think you're doing them good, and the truth is you're doing them harm. You can't, he's 13, you can't even trust him to brush his own teeth. You got to check him before he leave the house just to make sure he got all of it. Did you put on deodorant? And now here he is, 35, and his wife asking him the same thing. Did you wash your face? You think you're doing them some good, when the reality is some of us have got to learn how to fall so that we can know that God will pick us up. That great songwriter of the Christian church, I don't reach as far back as some of y'all reach back. Some of y'all go all the way back to Mahalia Jackson. I ain't got time to go that far back. I'm from, I've lived through multiple generations. I don't have to go all the way back to Mahalia. I can go back to Kirk Franklin. This before he taught us to stomp, the whole stomp, nothing but the stomp. This is pre-stomp Kirk Franklin. Kirk Franklin says, I've been through the fire. I've been through the flood. I've been broken into pieces, seen lightning flashing from above. But through it all, I remember that he loves me and he cares. And he'll never put more on me than I can bear. I wish I had some old school. Oh. You can't roll with Kirk Franklin? Maybe you can roll with a little Andre Crouch. Andre Crouch says, I've had many tears and sorrow. I've had questions for tomorrow. There have been times I didn't know right from wrong. But in every situation, God gave me blessed consolation that my trials come only to make me strong. Andre said, through it all, I learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon his word. I didn't go back far enough. You a Kirk Franklin saint. You are Andre Crouch saint. Maybe I can go back and get some James Cleveland. James Cleveland say, I don't feel. Hey! I don't feel no ways tired. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, but I don't believe. I wish I had somebody who knew what I was talking about. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me now. I wish I had somebody who knew what I was talking about. I wish I had some witnesses in here that he didn't bring me through January to fail me in February. He didn't bring me through February to give up on me in March. He didn't bring me through November to cause me to lose it in December. And if he took care of me in 19, he'll take care of me in 2020. I don't feel no waste time. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, but I don't believe. I gotta quit, but I don't believe. I gotta stop, but I don't believe. He brought me this far. Yeah! To leave me. Had some heartache, but I'm still here. Had some heartbreak, but I'm still here. Lost some loved ones, but I'm still here. By the grace of God. Standing all over this building. Standing all over this building. Ought to have a witness here. Said I ought to have a witness here. Ought to have somebody. Don't mind testifying that God will. Just let me preach it like I feel it. God will. Yes, he will. God will. God will. God will. He didn't bring me this far